This is part 2 of 3 over the Italian Renaissance, and today's lecture will focus on Florence, Italy, and the Medici family. Florence, Italy was the heart of the Renaissance. Remember, Italy during this time period is broken up into city-states. There is no centralized Italian government. Each city-state is run like an independent nation with wealthy families ruling over them. In the 1400s, the Medici family of Florence ruled over the city and became one of the wealthiest and most powerful families in all of Europe. The Medici gained their wealth through controlling the banking industry in Florence and then spread their control throughout Europe. From 1397 to 1494, the Medici Bank was one of the largest and most respected in Europe, with the Medicis lending money to many of Europe's ruling houses. Cosimo de' Medici took control of the Florentine government in 1434 and started the family's control of the city-state for generations. Looking at this Medici genealogical tree, you can see the important people that came out of the House of Medici, including 3 popes and 2 queens of France. From Florence, the Medici spread their influence across the rest of Western Europe. This slide shows an infographic with information related to the Medici family. The grandson of Cosimo, Lorenzo de' Medici, came to power in Florence in 1469 and was known as Lorenzo the Magnificent. Lorenzo de' Medici was one of the most powerful rulers of the time and one of the biggest and most enthusiastic patrons of the Renaissance, sponsoring and funding the works of artists like Botticelli, Michelangelo, and Da Vinci. Lorenzo's death in 1492 brought an end to the golden age of Florence and marked the decline of the House of Medici. One of the Medici's longest-lasting and most important legacies was their patronage of the arts. Their money created a golden age for Florence, and some of the greatest Italian masters owe their commissions to the Medici family. As stated before, the Medici's influence was not contained to Florence, but was felt all over Europe. The Medicis produced 3 popes, including Pope Leo X, born Giovanni de' Medici, who was one of the leading popes of the Renaissance, making Rome the cultural center of Europe and expanded the building of the famous St. Peter's Basilica. Leo X is also notable due to his involvement in the Protestant Reformation and his excommunication of Martin Luther, which we will discuss later during this unit. The second Medici Pope was Clement VII, who was cousin of Leo X. Later in this unit, we will focus on the actions of Clement towards Henry VIII of England and his role in the creation of the Anglican Church. The Medici family practiced nepotism, or gave political benefits to their own family members. As you can see, Leo X gave his cousin an archbishop position to help him to become pope one day. The Medici were very good at trying to benefit their family members when they came into powerful positions. The Medici family also produced 2 queens of France. The first, Catherine de' Medici, is one of the most recognizable and famous queens in French history. She was not only queen herself, but ruled as regent after her husband's death and mothered 3 kings of France. Her uncle, Pope Clement VII, arranged her marriage to the Duke of Orleans, who would become King Henry II of France. When Henry II died, she became regent for her son Francis II, and when he died, she became regent again for her younger son Charles IX, who was only 10 when he took the throne. Catherine had a lasting impact on French history for her choices made during the French Wars of Religion and her harsh stance against French Protestants. Marie de' Medici also ruled as a French queen during the late Renaissance, and like Catherine, ruled as a regent for her young son. Since 1434, the Medici family had controlled the government of Florence due to wealth and power, but had no actual royal or ancestral claim to the government. That changed in 1531, when Pope Clement VII, a Medici family member, created the Dukedom of Florence and anointed the Medicis the Dukes of Florence, giving them ruling legitimacy and a noble title. The duchy was elevated to a Grand Duchy of Tuscany in 1569, and the Medici ruled it until 1737. Here are pictures I took during my trip 2 years ago to Florence. This is the Medici Palace in Florence, and it is incredible. All of the ceilings are painted or frescoed. Here are pictures of the Grand Hall and the columns that are in the entryway to the palace. The next slide shows the outside of the Medici Palace, where Michelangelo's David originally stood but is now replaced by a replica.